Hello. 2 days ago, we got to do something really special. I was able to go to the Garland Theater and show our progress on Tales on the Rails to our friends, our neighbors, and a lot of the people that have supported this project when we put it up on Kickstarter at the beginning of the year. And I'm excited to say it was a great night, a milestone marker for sure. And unfortunately, I tried live streaming this from the theater, and it did live stream. I'm glad that there was no issue with that. But unfortunately, the audio just wasn't fantastic. So it sounds very muddied, and so I was already planning on putting a preview of our progress up here on YouTube, but I feel like an intro and an outro are worth doing as well. So just to give you a small intro, I just want to say thank you if you have been a part of this project in any way. Whether that's just from conversations with me, or you donated some money to the Kickstarter campaign, or you were part of the team and continue to be part of the team. I am so grateful to you because we're really doing something neat. We're doing something that I don't think a lot of people have tried doing before, and I'm excited to share this with you. After you watch this, I'll share a little bit about where we're at and where we're going. But without further ado, here is our 10-minute film, Tales on the Rails, Casey Jones' Last Ride, the preview.
Well, we're definitely going to be late with this week's freight now. And that new engineer O'Brien does not like being late. I bet he'll be back here any second.
Conductor O'Connor, you here?
Back here, O'Brien.
What are you doing?
Just enjoying a cup of coffee. Would you like one?
Did you know I had to stop the train, pull into a siding?
I did. It's just a signal stopping us.
Pretty calm considering we were already running behind schedule. I was just getting up to speed to make up some time when that signal pulled us into the siding.
Probably just the westbound Overland holding us up. Not much to do but enjoy some fresh coffee and wait it out. Where's your fireman?
Jenkins? Got them checking the engine. Waste of time if you ask me.
What's a waste of time?
This, sitting here, is a waste of time. We only had a few miles left on the main, and it's clear. It was a faulty signal if you ask me.
Mojave just inspected that signal last week.
Maybe he did. It was better in the old days when we had real signalmen, not these electronic flags. No way to be able to cut time now.
Cut corners, you mean?
Easy, O'Connor. You folks from Green Valley may not have to worry about late trains. But in the big city, they don't mind if we break a few rules to get the job done so long as we're on time.
And you think that's how we should go about doing our business?
Absolutely.
You know, you sound just like Casey Jones did back in his time.
I would do well to sound like Casey Jones. May you rest in peace. You know he died on the rails.
Indeed he did. But did he really have to die?
What do you mean by that?
Well, surely you know the story.
I know the ballad.
The ballad, yes. A great ballad, but it does miss some of the nuances of that fateful night. We have some time before that Overland gets here. Why don't you take a seat and I'll tell you about him.
We're already behind schedule. Tell your story, O'Connor.
Well, it was a faithful, foggy, fairly rainy night, much like tonight. Casey pulled into Memphis on time with a trainload of passengers from Mississippi. Before he could even exit the locomotive to take a well-deserved break, the station master told him to take charge of the return train.
And Casey Jones said yes, as any good engineer would in a time of need.
Yes, but should the Illinois Central have put him in that position in the first place?
I'm not here to talk labor rights with you, O'Connor.
Neither am I, O'Brien. All I'm saying is that the railroad taking a loss on a late train was more important to them than making sure their engineers were well rested.
Casey Jones drove the train on his own volition. He could have said no to the return trip.
Yes, he did volunteer for the job, but Casey Jones was a company man, and the Illinois Central gave him his dream career, being a high-wheeling engineer. And in return, he assured them that he would do whatever it took to get those trains in on time.
And he was nearly almost always on time.
And he famously broke a few rules, or bent them at least, to do so.
He got the job done.
Indeed he did, all the way up until that night. Casey took off at nearly midnight with a trainload of passengers, an hour behind schedule.
And he got his train up to speed to make up for that time.
Yes, he did. And how fast do you think he was pushing that train to make up an hour that night?
I'd wager he was doing at least 90 miles per hour.
Exactly right. Sim Webbs, the fireman, still claims to this day that they were up over 100 miles per hour. Casey was taking that train to its limit that night, driving it around bends in the fog and the rain. He made up his minutes and seconds where he could. And he either missed or didn't see the flag telling him to pull into the siding.
That's disputed.
What's disputed is if he saw the flag or not. All the same, if Casey was going the regulated speed limit, he very well may have seen that signal pulling him to the siding.
But he would have been late otherwise.
Well, he certainly was late regardless, wasn't he?
Well, that's true. The train never made it.
Because, as is the nature with the rails, there was a train on the line, and that signal was pulling him to the siding till they could get that train off the main line.
What was the issue with that train? The ballad doesn't talk about that.
Yeah, a broken air hose or something like that. All the same, as Casey rounded that bend, his side of the locomotive was obscured, so he didn't see the red lights of the held-up train just ahead. Sim Webb, being on the other side of the locomotive, was the first to notice the stuck train. He alerted Casey. Casey put the throttle in reverse and activated the brakes, but at over 100 miles an hour, there's no stopping that train.
You forgot to mention that Casey Jones had his firemen leap from the train in time.
Right, old Sim Webb fell unconscious as soon as he hit the ground. The last thing he heard was the screeching wheels and Casey blowing the whistle as the two trains collided. He still tells that story in Memphis if you're ever down there.
Heck of a way to go. But Casey Jones saved a lot of lives that night.
Yeah, he saved everyone. He saved the crew, he saved the passengers, he saved the crew of the other train that was stuck on the rails. Everyone except himself.
Our lives are always in jeopardy on the rails, O'Connor. You should know that more than most.
You're quite right.
What am I missing, O'Connor, with Casey Jones's demise some 45 years ago while we're sitting in a siding waiting for the Western Overland to pass us by?
Well, you came in here complaining that that signal was faulty. Do you think we should have continued?
Absolutely. We're only on the main for a few short miles before we hit the junction to Green Valley. So tell me, O'Connor, what's the moral of your story?
Well, I guess our connection with Casey Jones is... it's better to be late than dead. And never underestimate the vigilance of your firemen.
Engineer O'Brien, we're all set and the signal's changed, so we better get moving if you want to make some time up. What are y'all doing back here?
Ah, Jenkins, just hearing this story about Casey Jones' heroic last ride.
Oh, that's a good one. But if you ask me, the real hero of the story is the fireman.
How's that?
Well, fireman Sim Webb and his alertness is what gave Casey any time at all to save anyone. Thank you. If Sim had been idle as they rounded that curve, they would have never seen that caboose up ahead. So if you ask me, it's Sim Webb, the fireman, that's really the hero of that story.
If there's any heroes at all, I think the whole thing was unnecessary and tragic.
I take your point, O'Connor. I take some offense in you suggesting that Casey Jones was anything less than a hero.
Rest easy, O'Brien. He was a hero long before his last ride.
How's that?
Well, surely you know the story of how he saved a little girl stuck on the tracks from certain death?
No, I don't know that story.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, perhaps another time, though. We don't know how long the main line will be open.
Right you are, O'Connor. Jenkins, let's get this train rolling.
Right behind you. See you back in town, Stephen.
Right. See you, Luke.
So there you are. That's our preview of Tales on the Rails, Casey Jones' Last Ride. Truly, that is the full length of the project. The idea is that these are all going to be short episodes, and this is a proof of concept of that. Short 10 to 15 minute episodes that each tell some different story of American railroad folklore. And the idea being that the live action characters are giving us a space where they can retell that story to each other, and we hear it from them. But I want to take this project a little bit further. You can already tell there's unfinished aspects to this. For example, the visual effects outside the windows, that's a rough cut. We're still working on that. In fact, I'm excited to say we have one of the best visual effects people in Eastern Washington helping us with this project. They're excited to help. They did this rough cut just so that we can show a little bit of what they're able to do. And then beyond that, the key element that I think is going to bring this project home is having animation in the project help tell the story. And in animation in the style of the 1940s, something that feels vintage and nostalgic. And the idea being is that through this story, as Conductor O'Connor tells it, and they go through this back and forth, there'll be these fade-ins and fade-outs of short snippets of animation to give a sense of what this was going, an animated version of Casey Jones' Last Ride. And so it would be blended with the story. And I'm excited to say I've been looking for an animator since I've started this project. I've talked with a few, and we've had back and forth with a few, but I'm really excited to say I do have an animator. Her name is Aya Kashima, and she's very talented. Her art style is perfect, which I believe you'll see in a moment. In a moment, I'm going to put on the screen here her work, but I really want to highlight that she just started freelancing, and I'm so excited that she's able to be a part of this project. That being said, her and Adam Harem, the visual effects fella, they don't come for free. This is not for free. So we were able to raise money on Kickstarter to be able to film this project. And I had other intentions on getting funding for animation and all this stuff. But where we are on the project and where I want to take it, I kind of want to continue trying to do this as grassroots as possible. And so I've started a GoFundMe in the hopes of trying to raise money for Aya and for Adam to be able to finish this project and finish those elements for it while I finish up some other aspects of it as well. And to keep it short, Aya needs $8,000, and it would take her about 3 or 4 months to do the animation necessary. And Adam needs about $600, and he would only need a couple of months at most to do this, but his visual effects would be done by December. And the final product for this should be finished by the end of March, assuming that we can get funding by the middle of October. I'm not expecting to make this much money on GoFundMe. I'm not. And I'm only doing it for a month. I know a lot of people can keep GoFundMes up a long time, but I like having a clear endpoint. And so the idea with this is not necessarily to raise all the money on GoFundMe, although that would be great, but to use money on GoFundMe as an offset for whatever is necessary for me to get the funding to finish this out. And I have a few ways of going about that. At the end of the day, it might be just me getting a personal loan and just finishing it out, because I have a very clear vision with this, and I really want to see it come through, and I really believe that when it's finished, we'll be able to get a proper sponsorship to make a full series of these. And if you're wondering, well, gosh, what's the end game with this? It's not just a web series. It's not just a few DVDs who, are just going to be sitting on a shelf. It's actually a much larger idea. My concept for this is that it would be a museum exhibit, in a way, at railroad museums across the country. Not necessarily a permanent exhibit, but maybe a traveling exhibit where you have some sort of a boxcar that you can make a theater out of, or it's a tent that feels like it's a traveling show from the 1940s. And in it, you have this old projector playing these stories over and over again, where people can come in and learn a story or two and be able to leave and walk away learning something new and feeling like they stepped back in time for a moment. And so that I really believe in this vision. And so I am doing this GoFundMe. I'm not expecting it to succeed. If you've already given money to this on Kickstarter, I'm absolutely not expecting you to give more. You helped get us this far. But for those of you that can help and that do believe in the project, Please take a look at the GoFundMe. I'm going to bring up the artwork now, and there's going to be a QR code on it. And again, I just want to say thank you all for being able to help bring this to life. Ideas require a team, and my team is very diverse, and I'm grateful for all of you. So thank you again for watching the preview, and I hope you're excited to see where we take this. I'll see you down the rails.